Welcome back to the Mind Mountain podcast, formerly known as the Grit with Wisdom podcast. Changed the name recently just for simplicity's sake. But as you know, this is the podcast that delves deep into the mental side of mountain biking so that you can learn tips, tools, and tactics from people from all across the sport so that you can learn to have more fun out on the trails more often. Today I'm sitting down here with Alex Cairns here in Squamish. Alex is a Squamish local, former Paralympian sit skier. Competed in the 2018 Winter Games among a host of other high-profile events. These days, he's dove kind of headfirst into the world of mountain biking, adaptive mountain biking, and trail building as well. Stoked to have Alex here today. He not only treads on a bike, we just had a fantastic ride, but he also is generous with his time and spends a whole, many hours out on the Squamish trails.
It's not that much.
more than a lot of us, that's for sure. And you also volunteer on the 𝗬𝗀𝗃 Trails Committee and with Squamish Adaptive Mountain Biking, right?
Yeah.
Fantastic, man. Well, stoked to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for taking
the
the time. Why don't we start? I'd love you to just tell the listeners here, what trails did you take me on today? And why did you choose those trails?
The classics.
Yeah.
And trails start on Boney and then into 𝗂𝗃 and then over to Highway to Hell into 𝗲𝗡. So
fantastic. It was such a good lap. And
yeah, can't not.
Conditions are on. We're just saying that it only gets better and better from here. And
yeah, a little wet.
Yeah, little slippery in parts for sure.
Held it together.
We got some sunshine, so.
Yeah, it's coming. It's going to be better.
What do you love most about those trails, the classics?
You can ride them fast, you can ride them slow. Both are cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's they're hard trails, maybe, but the point of a lot of them is, a lot of the sections is to go slow. And I think that's fun. And like for me and like how I move, that works out a lot better than herring down something too quickly and not having the reflexes for it.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. We're kind of chatting on the ride about you've been experimenting. Why don't you tell us, like, what's your setup look like that you ride most of the time?
Yeah, regular Norco range, VLT. I am paralyzed below the knees with spina bifida. Lumbar 4 and 5 are my kind of two affected vertebrae. So I wear leg braces below the knees, and that just locks off my ankles. And with that, I have enough quad strength to push the pedals around. The only mod to the bike is a spacer in my pedal that takes me further from the crank if I want
Okay, cool.
Because I'm liable to like pedal myself right off the crank.
Yep.
And then I blow on foot, it's over. So,
right.
yeah, that's kind of the only. And I guess the pedals themselves are the Kona 𝗬𝗏𝗏s, so they're dinner plate size. So they're huge.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, that I can't miss.
It's pretty stealthy, right? Like on our climb today, we had a guy shout like, "Oh, you're on an e-bike, you're cheating."
Every day.
Oh man.
Yeah.
But I wanted to get in there. You've been testing out some other like styles of mountain biking lately. You've tried a adaptive bike recently.
Yeah. So we have one of the bowhead bikes with Squamish Adaptive, and we kind of like I ride a regular bike, and Sierra is able-bodied and rides a regular bike, and so in having the bike for people to come and use, we'll also take it out so that we have a better idea of what we're talking about. Because as much as we know mountain biking and as much as we spend time around other people with disabilities, and like Sierra's able-bodied, she spent a ton of time working on interacting with people with disabilities.
Yeah.
You still gain something from riding the bike.
I bet,
Yeah, so we take it out every once in a while. And yeah, that day we did the new section on Lower 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝗏 from James. And then we went and rode another one of his, I think it's his, to do the donut. And that was fun. It was a lot harder, but yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. We were chatting about that. There's a few tight sections on the climb there
Yeah.
to get through, but going down the slab on one of those bikes must have been a hoot.
No.
Like
No, it was
the right one, right?
Yeah, we went to the far right side, and I ended up being in the bike for that one. I basically didn't ride it. I rode down and I stayed in the bike on it, but Dustin and Sierra were both hanging on the bike to go down it for me.
Right.
I haven't had enough time like to do the thing.
Fair enough. Like,
but there's tons of people in the sport that would crash that slab and
yeah.
I just got scared. It's all off angle and I was like,
Fair enough. I guess like any new sport or like adaptation of a sport you're familiar with, you want to take your time before going straight into like a black expert level rock slab.
Yeah, and I mean that's
work your way out.
That's a dark blue, but it's just the shapes. It's like, again, like I told you before, I've got friends who go to the top of Diamond Head and ride some of the hardest loamers, and yet sections like this fairly easy slab on the donut is just crooked enough that it doesn't quite work. I mean, it would if you're better at it than I am. Or sections of the climb trail that are just off kilter enough and skinny enough that if you fell, it's like a big deal. Those little bits are what throw you off for adaptive bikes. Or like just a section that's too skinny. If it's 30, I think the skinniest you can go for the widest bike is 36 inches.
Right, yeah. So quite a wide bit of tread.
It's got to be like substantial.
Yeah.
That said, yeah, they can ride most things in town. Realistically, it's just the random like one rock that'll be like, okay, that's meant for a two-wheel mountain bike. You can sneak through there.
Yeah.
They just can't sneak.
Yeah.
And those are the things that we kind of look at chatting with the builders about. And even James, like he called us to just go and make sure that those bikes could get down it. And we didn't really run into too much. You know, there's like one rock that like it could stay, it's rideable. But if you like took 8 inches off of it, it just gets good through.
Yeah.
So we just go and hunt those things out to open up trails for people.
Amazing, dude. It's really good work. And it's great to hear that some of the local builders like James are actually like including you guys in the consultation process as well.
That was incredible.
Yeah.
Super kind. Like it doesn't need to do that. And it doesn't need to work for people with disabilities. There's tons of other trails around, you know, like he's got his contract to build the trail. He's done, he's paid.
Yeah.
But he's like, well, if I'm going to change anything, I'll get it changed now and then I'll get the trail finalized.
Yeah.
It's like, thanks. Like that's, and there's spots where it makes sense to do it and there's spots where it doesn't make sense to do it, and that's fine for now. Sport's still young, so you can't go modifying everything for adaptive bikes, and you can't go making everything easier just because that bike needs to be able to fit through. Like a lot of things, there's some trails that we should kind of crack open because it's very small modifications. I did it the other day on a trail. It was one log that stuck out too far. It was above the trail height, but it was one log. So I went up and I cut just 10 inches off the end of the log. Trail's open.
Nice.
And that's what we're trying to find right now, is trails like that we can get easily.
Yeah, those like small changes for like big results, that must feel good.
Totally. This opened up a whole trail to cut one log in 6 minutes.
Yeah.
Like it, and that's what we're trying to portray to a lot of the builders as well. It's like modifying your trail for an adaptive bike isn't modifying the style of trail. There's so many like big paved trails. Like, oh yeah, it's like we did this with adaptive funding, so like that's an adaptive trail now. And you're like, okay, yes, but that's just a green trail. That's not an adaptive trail. Like, what's an adaptive trail? Like that's not.
Yeah.
It's the trails that are capable. You're capable of riding with an adaptive bike.
Yeah, that's a cool take on that. So
that's like the difference for me.
Yeah, I guess like the trail James has built, or the extension of Pamplemousse is a good example of that, isn't it? It's a really, and I guess you have a unique lens because you're riding your regular e-bike, and you've also spent in some time on the 𝗪𝗏𝗏 as well. So you kind of seeing both sides of it, but it's super fun on both bikes from what I'm hearing.
Yeah, oh, those things are so fun.
Yeah.
We got to get you in one.
Yeah, I'd love to try that, man.
We should go for a little boot around.
One of the things that has like fascinated me over the years is like going back to that like complete beginner place in different sports.
Oh, this is it.
Because then I'll understand kind of people when they're experiencing that through a mountain bike coaching lens. Yeah. So yeah, like it both sounds like scary, but also fun. I'd like to try it.
Yeah, it changes everything. Like, and yet like there's still some stuff that makes sense. Like long straight slabs, still totally doable. Yeah. Cole was the first one, and I think the only one to do In-N-Out Burger. He did it with Remy a few years ago. Like because it's not off kilter. You can just do that.
Yeah. So it's a rollover risk when it's off camera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he just went straight. It works.
Amazing.
So, like, yeah.
Yeah.
It's fickle and subtle. And
Super cool. Hey? We're kind of chatting on our rides. You were saying like a lot of people will just assume because you're riding an adaptive bike, you must be riding a lot of flow trails, a lot of, smooth, wide stuff.
yeah.
You mentioned for you, it's actually the opposite. I'd love for you to, just explain to the listeners here, like,
Yeah,
why does you prefer the slow techie stuff?
Yeah, it's because of how I move. If it's chunky and fast, or like again the berms at the bottom of pseudo, or some of the berms on half Nelson, they're really long, and you spend most of your energy just pinning to get up that hill on the other side. You always make it. It's always fast, but you just being pressed into the bike, for me, that's a nightmare. And it gets dangerous because then you're getting pressed down and it's like all awkward. My feet could blow off at a high speed at that point. Yeah. So for me, I've kind of found a place in slabs where you just go slow. And like the slower you can go on a slab shows more control. And I mean, that was definitely from riding with Ollie for a bunch of years.
So 𝗲𝗏𝗏𝗧, you can scroll back through the archives of this podcast and listen to it if you like. But you're friends with Ollie. You guys are riding lots of gnarly slabs here in Squamish.
Yeah.
The day, right?
There was a good chunk of time there where we were riding a lot together, and the first time I rode bikes after taking a bunch of years off to ski race, we went riding together, and then he was working with a rental company, Lisa, biking in Squamish.
Yeah,
that's what it was.
It
still is.
Yeah.
They set me up with an e-bike for the day, and we went and did end trails, and that was it. I was like, okay, this works and this makes sense, and it's something to go off of, and it just never stopped.
Yeah,
just ride slabs.
Amazing, dude. So that's kind of like the more recent part of your journey, I guess. I'd love to wind the clock back here a little bit and I guess kind of discover what led up to this. Did you grow up here in Squamish?
Yeah, it's home.
So Squamish, born and bred?
Yeah, almost. I was born in Vancouver.
Okay.
Moved up here at 2 years old.
Yeah.
Big move for me.
It's almost rare to bump into someone that's like, no, I was born in the Sea to Sky.
Yeah, my sister was.
People like myself.
Yeah, my sister was born in Squamish. But yeah,
So what was it like growing up here? And I guess when did mountain sports in general first like pop up on your radar? It's like you became interested in?
Oh, I didn't have a choice. My dad was a ski guide climber.
Right.
He still plays. Mom grew up sailing, so it was like there was no chance. I think I was 7 years old, and they were like, "All right, bike, out you go." They velcroed my feet to the pedals to make it work.
Yeah.
That was our first like try.
Essentially, like not born riding SBDs, but from a very young age, sent out with feet clipped to the pedals.
That would be with like training wheels at the time. So it's like kind of no harm. And that was perfect then. I've tried clips since, and it
doesn't work. Okay.
I tried clips and I tried the magnetic pedals.
Yes.
And I found that when I use a wider pedal, I can like drop the bike and my foot can kind of make a different shape than the pedal. Yeah. Because I'll never be able to match with the ankle.
I see. Yeah. Yep.
So if I just use a big dinner plate, then I can't miss when I come back. But yeah, I grew up playing outside. It's just, we had video games for like a week. It wasn't our thing.
Right.
We weren't, started ski racing right after high school. Started ski racing for Team Canada, I think 2 years after high school. That was it till 2019.
Okay, nice.
That was everything.
Yeah. I think I read like your mum signed you up for a clinic in Whistler, and that was kind of like the catalyst for the ski racing there.
Yeah. It was just like winters were always long for me. I would move well. At the time, I wasn't in a wheelchair yet. I was walking. So winters were long, and so I was just signed up to try something. I sucked. I was horrible at it.
Right.
Yeah, but it just kept signing me up for lessons.
Was it you that got hooked on the sport and wanted to keep going back, or was it kind of your parents that kept signing you up at first?
I wasn't refusing to go. I wasn't like putting up a fight
Right.
in going, I don't think. But it was hard. Like it's
Yeah.
cold, and like you can only go in adaptive sports. You can't rent a sit ski
Right.
anywhere in the world. You have to take it out as a lesson. It's 16, 17 years old. You don't want to take lessons anymore. You want to be with your friends.
That's it.
So that was always hard.
Yeah.
Like Whistler Adaptive is incredible, but at 16, you don't care. You're like, all my friends are in the park.
Yeah.
I want to ski park.
Yeah.
And so the first few seasons where I skied like a little bit because it's expensive. I just
Yeah.
didn't get out much. Yeah, those are just hard. And then I think the year after I graduated, I did math again, just to upgrade it and do
Yeah.
better. But after math, I would go up every day.
Okay.
So I skied 85 days that season, and then it was game on.
Sorry, something just clicked in my mind. You mentioned earlier you've got a really calculated approach to the sport. And you just told me there, I'm spending my mornings doing math and my afternoons skiing. You think this is where it started?
I suck at math,
Okay.
and I crashed my bike.
Calculations are still in work in
Calculations
progress.
go wrong. Yeah, no, it's yeah, I think that side is portraying through sport that adaptive sports aren't all just like people hucking a carcass and going for it, and like if they've been hurt, like they're trying to get hurt again, you know, like.
Did you see a lot of that when you were like in the ski racing world?
You see a little bit of it for sure. Every once in a while, you're like, oh, okay, like this person got hurt, and they're great. They're fun people. It's like individuals, fun to be around, but you're like, I can see why.
Right. As
Like,
in like
maybe
high
I'm
risk
wrong.
tolerance,
Yeah.
just by nature.
And like maybe I'm wrong, and that's a prejudiced thing to do. So I have to like be gentle with it for sure, because it may not be the truth. But sometimes there are people that have been hurt because they're the type of people to send it that way, and it you know, when you get hurt and then you join adaptive sports, the narrowing towards that demographic becomes a lot more obvious. And then when you try and grow a sport like sit skiing or adaptive biking, it's got a lot more of that going on in it. It's a lot more like rah rah rah, like, oh, we're all hardcore, like that's hard to ensure or invite to places and have at events. And
So you're saying that
Yeah.
that image and that perception that perhaps relates to some adaptive skiers and bikers, but not
Sometimes.
all,
Totally.
can
Yeah.
sometimes be,
Of course.
I guess,
And
not helpful in the growth of the sport.
yeah, and I think like it's still stuck in that like where snowboarding was.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, it's a little bit foreign, kind of weird looking, kind of wild. And there's no reason for anyone without a disability to interact with it. It's just not there. You can't, as an able-bodied person, go and get a sit ski lesson. That sucks.
Yeah.
So you'll never learn
Yeah.
unless you really cross paths with these people. Yeah, so
Yeah, it
it
sounds
has.
like there's still some work to be done there, even in the fact that you can't rent one and just go out with your friends.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's the same kind of thing. Like, oh, I wouldn't mind trying a three-wheeled bike. Where can I rent one? I'm sure it wouldn't be that easy, right?
Yeah, no, that's the same thing. It's like you can't rent one of these bikes. It's equipment, it's expensive, and they're all non-profit, so they want to take care of it. So it kind of goes out with the instructor, and that's what you got to do right now. But
Yeah.
I can't wait for the day that you can just like get people on them and try it.
Totally. Man.
Ollie, I shoved him in a sit ski the other day, like last season.
How'd he go?
Not great.
Yeah. Of course he does.
He's athletic. He'll be fine.
Yeah. Interesting. And I guess like we're going to talk more about the mental side of things in a second, but like curious on that note, like how did you see someone like Ollie that obviously operates at a really high level on the bike some really high consequence situations. He stays cool under pressure. He's able to use his skills. Do you think any of those like tools or practices then helped him sit in a sit ski and somehow be okay at it?
Yeah, I mean, he did bad. He was bad. It's fine.
Yeah.
He didn't try for very long. It was just one of those like off the cuff, out of the car things.
I guess
he is an athletic dude, and it comes out in random little spots. You see it. It's neat, and I don't. Yeah, everyone starts at a different spot and channels to a different spot. And so like for my own sports, I know when I'm loose and hanging out, and I know when I'm focused and I'm driving. And I don't know, for him it's the same. Like everyone in sports does it, and he's just keeps doing it.
Yeah. So like similar skill set, but perhaps on a different level of terrain.
Yeah. I mean, it's a completely different level of terrain. There's a group of them that are pushing the sport further and showing how physics works for bikes.
Yeah.
Like that's a lot of what I see him wanting to show is like control. It's not to be the guy who sends it and like does everything on the edge of a cliff. Like, he just stops his bike in crazy spots.
It's inspiring to see.
It's neat.
Yeah. And like you say, kind of a different story. I guess you like talking about some of the misconceptions about the adaptive biking and skiing world, about that kind of huck and hope sending out. Like mountain biking experienced a similar thing, didn't it, back in its earlier days, that it's, you know, kind of grown through now. But
yeah, of course, you see a wild man like 𝗙𝗶𝘃 in a gravel pit, you'd be like, all right, keep driving.
Yeah, so it's interesting, watching the sports grow.
Yeah, that's how you get things done.
I'm curious, you said something there, like you said from your own experience, like trying all these different sports and getting to a high proficiency in some of them, you've got a deep sense of knowing when you're chilling and then when you're like really focused and in the zone. What are some things or some tools, some tricks you've learned over the years to help switch between those two states? Or do you have like a...
Happiness.
Yeah.
If you're carrying anything on a ride, don't ride anything hard.
Wise advice.
Yeah, I think that's a big one for me. That was a big one for me, like during my skiing as well. Before the Paralympics, I went with the engineer from the team, and we did our own free ski lap right down to the start of the race course. And he's like, just have at it. Okay, I've got a spare shock. I've got spare gear. Go for it. And so we were just doing side hits and playing around, and then you just go straight down into the boost and wait half an hour and start your race. Like, loosen up, feel good.
Yeah.
And I think that for me shuts everything down, and you can just ride or whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, I love that take on it. Like, focus on the fun, the happiness, and then the result of having a good race will probably come. But rather than focus on just the result going fast.
Yeah, I don't know, I mean, that's a big one too, is like rushing, like trying to be fast. I've never been fast when I do that. But as soon as you're playful and loose, it's like, right, like move, and you just link up the things you want to link up, because you just like feel like you can, so it happens.
Yeah, fantastic.
I don't know.
So how do you take that to a mountain bike ride these days? Say, for example, you're not competing, but you're out on a ride and you feel like maybe at the start of the ride you are carrying some stuff. Got any kind of ways of approaching that to get back into the sweet spot where you're in your zone?
I don't go out on a ride having chosen every feature that I'm going to ride before I go out. That sets a precedent that I don't want. I will do the opposite and say I'm not going to ride this certain section, like 𝗪𝗏 today, the entrance feature. I don't need that every day. And if I did the reverse and said, no, like today is the day I'm going to ride that slab and then all the way through. You kind of get bent on doing it. No one's paying me to be here. Like, I'm good. Yeah, and that leaves space for like little moments that are just really sweet to come out of nowhere because you're just ready for it and it just works.
Yeah, I love that. So instead of kind of planning it out and putting that pressure on yourself, you're just in the moment like, hey, do I feel like doing this feature that's right in front of me?
Totally. And you have to plan these things, but the days that I walk up and down features to scope them and like clean off the rock and look around are not the days I ride them. Mm-hmm. If I get off my bike before going through something, I'm probably just leaving it.
Right.
Not always, but yeah, I just like go and familiarize yourself and then go have a ride up to that point and then go through remembering what you noted before and ride through it.
Yeah, I love that. That's a really cool tactic. Yeah. So almost like separating, obviously you tie in the trail maintenance as well. Thank you for all of that. But separating like this is my scope out ride or walk or whatever you're doing to check out the features and visualize how they're going to work.
Totally.
And then you've got a separate ride where it's like, today I'm going to ride these if I feel like it.
Yeah. And for me, it's like having my feet planted and like, yeah, just feeling good. I might do it on the same day and loop back and do the whole trail to that point again.
Yep.
But I won't like walk down something, walk back up, get on the bike and ride it very often.
Yeah. Can be tricky, like, cooling down, getting out of your flow and then try to like perform.
Yeah, and then flicking it on. Like I don't need to do that now. I did that for work.
Okay.
That was ski racing.
Yep.
I was bad at it.
Right.
Like I did well in the sport. I carried through to the biggest event in the sport, mine, but it wasn't fast. And it was because I don't feel like I can flick on those moments.
Okay.
That way.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I can, and maybe that's in that I just haven't noted. But yeah.
So you feel like if say you weren't in a race environment or the pressure wasn't there, you might have gone faster.
Yeah.
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 I'm a lot of people, probably everyone listening to this race can relate to that.
I'm a way better skier out of the gates than I am in the gates.
Right.
I
just
have that freedom. I can decide when I want to move, and it looks different. Biking, I'm not a racer for bikes, but I don't see.
You do some races, right? We chatted at Craigworks.
Oh yeah, coming in. Crankworks is at its adaptive events, which is very neat. And for me, that's a fun one to go to. Most people who are riding with a disability are riding a 3 or 4 wheel bike. And so I go to that one to kind of portray a different disability.
Yeah.
And it's still a young sport, still in a tough spot. It's like I'm fortunate in my ability to move what I can, and it makes me faster through a lot of technical riding. So in those races, it's not that close. Like I will, unless I do something wrong, I'll win. And there's still like big gaps on the podium that way.
Right.
Because there's not enough people in the sport to sort out different categories, different layers and things. So, Crankworks, I think even for a lot of the other riders, it's an exhibition event for us, and it's a way to portray our sport. And it's a huge platform, and we're super lucky to have it. I think that's kind of as far as it goes. No one's like on each other, and like there's a couple of people on the bowhead bikes that are like hundreds behind each other.
Right. That's really cool. Hey, top competition.
Which is turning into really good sport.
It's great to watch as well. Yeah.
But otherwise, it's people being able to show something different. For the rest of the world, because otherwise you just don't get to see it.
Yeah.
There's only a handful of these people riding those sort of things. So
exactly.
We're chatting with Crankworks quite a bit now. to get a few things changed and hopefully get a different tech event.
Okay,
We'll
fantastic.
see.
Yeah.
But I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. But
It'd be great to see some other locations as well, right?
well, that's yeah.
Yeah.
I'm personally hoping that we end up doing something like lower Whistler downhill.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
And why is that? Like, what appeals to you about racing on that trail?
I don't even need to race it. I just think the sport's well into that zone already.
Yep.
There's several people that can ride that trail, no problem.
Yep.
And I think Crankworx should have an event that shows something that's closer to what's being pushed in the sport.
Right, yeah.
That is to represent it, because that's what they do for able-bodied. However long that takes for Crankworx, that's fine. Like, they need to build up a rapport, and they need to make sure they can insure it and make sure that it's going to be worthwhile for them to have it on. And we'll see what they do with those sort of things. But
Totally. Yeah, you're saying that's one of the barriers the sport is currently facing is the insurance aspect of getting bikes that haven't been on trails traditionally, getting them insured to be in races.
Yeah.
And you're saying without the people in the 𝗏𝗏𝗏 bikes, it leaves only 2 or 3 other people for you to compete against. So then all of a sudden the race is taken away.
Yeah. So I didn't go to any of the BC Cup series this year, so I'm not entirely sure of the full story.
Okay.
But essentially, to the adaptive category, that's what happened. Is they realized that these specific bikes aren't insurable or don't fit under a regular category of e-bike. They go fast. They have a throttle.
Yeah.
So they ended up pulling it for those bikes, but that took up most of the category. Then they kind of folded on that, and none of the other guys wanted to race if no one else is there.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of something that a few different avenues are working on. I know that Cycling BC is still chipping away at it. Rocky Mountain Adaptive and Squamish Adaptive for both. Calling people for insurance. Please. It's like adaptive equipment, and this is what we have. Yes, it's a powerful bike, but you don't need to drive it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Trying to work it out.
Yeah, it's always an interesting one trying to explain how something actually is, how the sport is for someone who's not experienced in it.
Well,
so insurance people in the corporate world, maybe in a city.
Well, the bowhead itself, the 𝗏𝗃 specifically is the model. It's not. They didn't build it to race. They built it as an adaptive bike, and they knocked it out of the park. It's a beautiful bike. It rips, and you can do a lot on it, and that's why they built it. It's like getting people with disabilities into more places. It's not there as a race machine, but it's just running into these insurance things right now, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Growing pains, man. Hopefully that can be figured out sooner rather than later, so that more people can get out there doing mountain bike races.
Yeah.
I'm curious for someone that has never tried one. When I do get in one day and give it a go, what's your biggest bit of advice, and what's the biggest thing you learn after a couple of rides?
The articulation is wild. They're super moldable to whatever you want to do to move, but they will just flop, and you kind of have to counteract them, which is really cool.
Okay.
You can keep the pin in when you're just cruising around on flat ground.
Yep.
But you can wreck it, the pin, that way a little bit, I think.
So they've got kind of like a locked out mode.
Yeah.
And then a fully
so that
flexible is maybe not the word, but fully
so that you can side hill, and you can do things to just dump the bike down.
Yeah, amazing. And that adjusts the camber of the 2 front wheels, right?
Just don't do too much side hilling.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know. That's from me, who's still scared of it. I don't understand it. There's Cole and 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, these 2 guys who rip for bowhead, the stuff they're doing now is just incredible.
Yeah.
I think Jaden, even in Whistler,
Yes, yeah, I'm a
hit
Jaden.
𝗪𝗀𝗃 last year.
Yeah.
Like, and yeah, fair enough. Like, it's a flat slab.
Yeah.
It's no off angle, and you just ride down. But like heavy.
Yeah, gnarly it.
Pretty
Yeah.
cool.
I don't know if it would be more scary unless being closer to the ground. But it's like,
Wouldn't it be great?
I know riding a go-kart sometimes feels terrifying and really fast because you're closer to the ground.
Yeah, I don't know yet. I haven't ridden the bike enough to like understand how to like get that braking control.
Yeah, man.
I think if you're standing, there's so much more, like you can get low or you can get back, you can be around. If you're sitting, you can do it with half your body.
Right, yes, you don't have the positioning differences to add to the braking technique.
You can get forward and back for sure, but
Yeah.
not as much. And so
Yeah, you're not actually putting your weight over
Yeah.
the tire.
I don't know how they do it.
Interesting.
It's super cool.
Sweet.
But yeah.
Awesome, man. That's great. Like moving back to, I guess, like most of the riding you do on your Norco range. I'm curious to learn about like your process we talked about before. You spend some days out, trail maintenance, scoping lines, that kind of thing. The days when you're out there riding and you're like, okay, I'm going to do this feature. It feels like a challenging one for me. Perhaps you're a little bit nervous. What does your process look like from like sitting at the top of it, riding in to actually doing it?
If I'm not scared, I'm not going.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like I'll have those moments coming into some features. And it's almost like an external, hey, if you don't shut that down and drive this like you stole it, it's not worth doing.
Right.
Yeah, so just kind of like, you have to, it usually is that moment when you're just peeking in, kind of like, okay, my tires need to be there, then they need to be there. Done. That's it. Put them there, then there, and go. And obviously that doesn't always work. People mess up, and we can't always win.
Yeah.
But I think for me, just break down like what's the job ahead and leave it at that, and not like, oh, I hope this works, and like I'm just gonna like run it. I'm on my brakes. I'm not fast. I think that's another big one for me. It's like,
It's interesting though, isn't it? Like that I'm not fast is all in perspective. Because I watched you ride pretty fast today down from Rocksley. Maybe not by choice after the slippery conditions we had.
One was a little fast.
Like you just say you're not fast. Like it's like, yeah, compared to what? But I hear what you're saying, that really like calculated, like task focused mindset.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, what's the job ahead, to use your words. And it sounds like you're really just focusing on that instead of what could go wrong.
Even what you watched on 𝗪𝗁 today when I ended up in the moss on the slab.
Yeah.
That turns into like, okay, the only thing you can't do is go over the bars here. That's not allowed. What else can you do? And like that was still like, that wasn't out of control, but it was definitely like I missed. And I had to like recoup where I was, and I came into the turn fast enough to find the bottom of the suspension.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just turns into business time. I don't know. You just kind of like, all right, move.
So when things don't go exactly to plan, it's like, reminds me of that saying, ideal to real we use from the first aid world. It's like, I guess ideally, maybe we would have been slower coming into that.
Yeah.
But it's like, you're here now, you're in the moss.
Yeah, keep moving.
Going pretty fast.
Make the next best
What
move.
can you do?
Right?
Yeah.
And that's it. Like, for me, I can't run off my bike. There's no like, oh, I'll just hop off and run it out. Like, that's fine. Like, I don't fall so good. So yeah, I don't put myself in a lot of different positions for that reason. And then, yeah, moments like that where it's just like, okay, well, I still know I have options, and I still know that I can hit anywhere in that 10 feet wide and be okay. So just get back on the brakes and try and like get back over to set up for the turn. But if you don't, you're going to stop or you hit that flat anyway.
Right.
And if you keep the tires underneath you to that point, you're not gonna mess up so bad. If yeah, I think it's so. I don't know if it's like other people will see it the same as like delaying, like laying the bike down. If I was to come off that little hop and lose the bike completely, I'll have the crash that Ollie had to break his wrist, where he was way higher up on the slab, aired a little piece, ice, lost the bike right away, and he rolled down the whole slab, and he got away pretty lucky with just the wrist. Whereas moments like that today for me, just manage it, and if you hit that with your tires on the flat, hit that with your tires. Way better.
Yeah, so trying to ride it out to some soft, loamier ground rather than having the crash up high on the rock slab.
And just knowing where you can get brakes again. Like I knew that the braking was kind of finished as soon as it didn't grab when I landed. I was like, oh, I'm coming too fast. Like, this isn't great. I jumped off it slow, but I didn't get what I wanted when I landed. And then the next thing is like a convex into a small compression that you can use, and then the big one at the bottom.
Yeah, it's got a technical little run out, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. It just turns into like work mode.
I love that. So kind of a couple of things stood out for me there. You're obviously like you've got an inventory, or you're doing that self-check before you ride new features of like, where are my zones of safety? To be able to refer back to that in the instance that it doesn't go quite to plan. Where am I trying to get to? So that's a good little tip for people to take out if they're not doing that already. So like, if this doesn't go right, where can I slow down next?
Yeah, and like, yeah, there's a difference between being on and off your bike. And I classify my mistake today as a mistake as a crash. I put them kind of in a similar category because I didn't do what I set out to do.
Okay.
I came out of it on my tires.
Yeah.
But it was wrong.
Okay.
For what I thought I was going to get.
So what you're saying is you'll learn from that either way, even though you stayed on the bike. It's like, okay, that didn't go quite right. What can I do better next time?
I call it a different type of crash.
Yeah, interesting.
You're just like, and maybe that's just like a weird thing that I'm learning about myself now, but it to me, I treat it the same way. It's like, I'm going to hit the flat at the bottom. I'd much prefer to hit it with my tires. And that's kind of it. I had no plan to like roll out and get up that hill or like anything like that. It's just like, get there on your tires and you've done the job you can.
Yeah. Is it just that?
I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to describe. I'm getting a little lost in the weeds of that one.
No, man, it's cool. I think I hear what you're saying. It's like you had your pocket of safety, island of safety, whatever we want to call it, and your plan was to get there. And I guess ideally, on, like you say, on your tires, on the back. That's what you did. Yeah.
Find your little spots of traction. And this was obviously like that spot of traction is the bottom.
Yeah.
But
for those, I know not everyone has that deep knowing of like, I still have options, and like when stuff doesn't go to plan, is able to stay cool enough to then enact a plan B or a plan C. Where do you think that came from for you?
poor planning. I'm reactionary.
So lived experience is what you're saying.
Maybe, yeah, that sounds better.
So no, break that down. Poor planning. What do you mean by that?
No, I think an example for me is my skiing. When conditions are perfect, I never did well. When conditions were bad, I just did okay. And that, I think, came from that year that graduated. I skied alone, and I'd catch the end of the day, and I'd go up and do like accelerator chair, because that's the only thing left before the mountain shut.
Right. Yeah.
And you just lift line accelerator, all mogul, horrible. Like not the run that people go to Whistler for. But I did that one a lot, like way too much. And I just like, it just adds tools to the kit of how to move. And
So almost like training in adverse conditions.
Yeah, not trying to necessarily. I just kind of went into it, and I I had fun like wanting to learn how to double some moguls and turn around some things. It was mostly just because that's where I could get to before the mount shut.
Yeah.
It happened to me, I guess.
That's awesome. And I think I know the answer to this, but like, do you take a similar approach to your mountain biking these days? To take it, you're out there pretty much rain, hail or shine.
I try and ride often.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a happy place for me. It's fun.
Do you think there's benefit in riding in adverse conditions on your mountain bike?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the off season is perfect for that. I think that's another one that I took from ski racing. It's like you're working in the gym all off season to do these things, and then when it comes to ski time, you're really trying to focus on that type of skiing for a bit till that race. So yes, but I don't know. I go through phases of like wanting to ride a style of trail, but that's kind of it.
Yeah.
And then with like loose ideas to work up in that area of riding. So then I will focus, but otherwise, no, the person who can ride the most variety of things, definitely the best rider.
Yep.
I mean, that's across any sport.
Yeah,
That's
totally.
kind of what it is.
Yeah.
It saves you energy too. I remember walking like all the first half of entrails when I got a bike.
Yeah. Well.
And that was way longer, way more energy than like just being able to ride it now.
Totally.
Especially for a guy who doesn't walk so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, obviously the more you know, the better.
I love that approach. And we kind of chatted about it a bit on our ride today. You're obviously like really good at technical clients.
I got lucky today. I cleaned almost everything.
Brought your finest climb into today's ride. But I'm curious, like, did that come from that, like, well, it's really hard for me to walk up this hill, so I'm going to get damn good at riding up it?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, the route we did today is bread and butter for me. That's like, if I'm out on a ride, that's where I end up going. So then you just want to clean things. You just want to make it. Yeah, but yes, absolutely. If I have to walk my bike, it takes a lot longer. Like you saw us walking into the top of 𝗂𝗃, and that takes, if I'm alone, that takes me 15 minutes.
Well, yeah.
A long time.
Yeah. I found that fascinating today. So often I was just being lazy and walking my bike. And I thought, for you, the stakes are so much higher of, slipping a pedal or sliding out of the route.
You see me hanging on to trees all the time.
Yeah, you're so much more determined than I was, but I love that about you.
It just, like I can walk it if I want to, sure, but like lengthens the ride. It's like bad for my knees because my legs don't sit straight.
Okay,
If I can just stay on,
yeah,
I can just keep moving.
Sweet. Well, this would be a good one for the listeners out there. What's your number one tip for technical climbing?
Well, timing your pedal strokes.
Nice. Yeah.
As you saw today.
Yeah.
Getting trapped in my feet.
Yeah, definitely challenging, especially riding on the trails around here in these conditions.
Yeah, and it took me a hot minute to get out of my easiest gear on climbs. And I think that was a big one for me. I sat in the smallest gear. I was like, just spinning and going nowhere with it, and then wondering why I had to pedal across all these routes. You gear up a little bit, you can kind of scoot. In different spots, obviously. But
yeah, I like that. Yeah, pros and cons to grinding away or sitting and spinning in different sections of the trail.
Yeah.
And I guess having the e-bike, let's maybe amplify it a little bit as well.
Yeah, I have to, I can still kick the tire enough to make the motor go off, and then it's 900 watts.
Yeah.
If you do that on a route, it's just
no. Yeah.
and then I'm stuck. I'll probably kick too hard. My foot will fly off the top because I don't have that range.
Yeah.
And then 1 foot on the ground.
Game over.
Yeah. Just timing the pedal strokes, I think, is a fun one.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
I get it dialed.
I'm curious, we chatted a little bit on this subject already, but I know it's a really important one for us to like give a voice to. Is there any other misconceptions or common things you kind of see out there in the public or just face in your day-to-day that you wanted to speak on in this podcast?
Yeah. Today, you get hazed by the old dudes.
Yeah.
Oh, it must be nice having an e-bike. You cheaters. Like, all these things. It's like, leave people alone. Yeah. And like, for me, I take issue with it anyway. It's a sport. It's a bike. If you bought the bike, you should be able to use it. Go for it.
Yep.
Do the thing. But with the disability, it's always a funny element. And I try not to do it, but every once in a while, we just like, yeah, it's because I'm paralyzed. And they're like, ooh. Like, yeah, it's a thing. It's kind of how I can ride a bike, unfortunately. That's what I got. And it's never, you never say it to be like, oh, you should feel bad. But also, you should feel bad. Stop doing that to people. Like, you don't know what you're coming across. And it doesn't need to be about what you're coming across either. Yeah. If you want an e-bike, get an e-bike. Ride an e-bike. Go for it.
I can't wait to get an e-bike. It's like, yeah, it even just goes back to like, don't be a dick. Eh? You know, like,
it's just like, I understand it's like that. It's typically like that person's sense of humor, and they're making conversation, and that's fine. And you have to take it as that. You can't be mean to these people. But when it's your only mode of transport as a disabled biker, like, kind of like, yeah, thanks, I've heard it. Like, I'm good. No, I don't want to tell you. I don't know who you are. Like,
yeah, totally. I can only imagine what it's like, you know, what he probably said as a harmless joke or whatever. But if you're hearing that 10 times on a ride and you're on riding 5 times a week, it's like, come on. It's all pretty quick.
It's not a huge deal. It doesn't matter. There's so much worse. I had there was an on-duty police officer at 𝗬𝗀𝗏𝗀 one day, and I could see that I was scanning tickets at the time, and he came through the machine, and he looked at me and looked at the wheelchair, and he pointed. He was like, "Oh, you must have had a lot of fun getting into that thing." This? Like, are you sure? You know how this happens, right? Like, and like, especially for him, like, in his line of service. Yeah. So I pulled him aside and said, listen, you can't do that. Like, people go through horrific things and end up in wheelchairs. Yeah. You got lucky with me. I'm born paralyzed and I'm a super lucky white kid in Squamish. Not this demographic. Like, there's different times that are always interesting.
You've got a super like great positive outlook on all this, but thank you for diving into this stuff. I think it's important conversations to have and just to raise awareness on. Even the fact that like him like assuming that you've had some kind of accident and that you did silly, like it's like,
and like I know where it comes from, so I'm not like offended if someone thinks I got hurt. But eventually, there's more, isn't there? Or like, no, I don't, like, even if I did get hurt, like, no, I don't really feel like telling you about it.
Yeah, none of your business.
Like, just leave it. You know, if it comes up in conversation, sure, or like, if it becomes important to what you're doing, ask. It's nice to ask too.
Yeah.
But as a stranger, it's like, oh, how'd you break your back? Like, go away.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
oh, I got hit by a drunk driver. Like that.
Yeah,
you know, like there's horrifying ways to end up in that spot. So don't do that.
Yeah. Don't ask. Wait until they like tell you or want to tell you.
Yeah. That's like, and that changes. I guess it doesn't really change. Even in ski racing, there's a lot of people inside that community that I had where you just didn't ask. Leave it. Yeah. Everyone's got a disability somewhere or another. And there's like some interesting stories. You know, some people run over by trains and like wild things. But otherwise, like, I don't know. Yeah. It's just a thing. You leave it alone.
Focus on the skiing. Focus on the biking.
Yeah. But
Yeah, I like that. I think like going back to that experience we had today, that guy could have just as easily said like, nice day, have a good ride.
Yeah.
Making conversation the same way.
Yeah, and I think that's like some of the baby boomers.
Yeah.
Not always, but like they just have that sense of humor in them, and
Yeah.
you gotta let it go, and it's innocent. Yeah, you never haze them for it.
Super energy, dude.
It's it's always entertaining, just like to know it. You're like, like if they knew, they probably wouldn't say it.
Yeah.
But maybe they would. Whatever.
That's it.
Some people fire away anyway.
Yeah. Speaking of entertaining, I'd love to round out here with a good old story from you. We were chatting on our ride, and we've been bumping into each other in Squamish for the last 3 years or so.
Yeah.
And I remembered a couple of stories you told me, and I had to just check in on the ride and say, am I remembering this correctly? But, like, one of my favorite things to talk about is misadventure, when it leads to like a conversation you can laugh about afterwards and nothing too serious went wrong, but you got yourself into a bit of a sticky situation.
Yeah.
You got a few great stories. I'm going to let you take the reins here and just riff on that.
The one you're referring to is running my poor little minivan off the side with north side connector. I did a lap out to Mickey's. I was just picking up something or dropping something off to the shelter. And right out by the hairpin.
Yeah.
On the north side connector, it's got a bit of a view.
Yeah.
Just on the
So
flats.
for those that aren't familiar with the area, we've got like a forest service road that's made of gravel and mud.
Yeah.
Steep off some sides of it.
Yeah. And it's a road to nowhere, it dead ends, and I just used it for working on the shelter. Ended up just running it off the road a little bit, getting stuck for, what is it? It was a fair few hours. Like cutting up little branches and tossing them under the van on my own in the snow. And but there was still a 𝗬𝗀𝗃 event. I don't know what the event was.
If my memory serves me correctly, it was like the 𝗬𝗀𝗃 volunteer sign-up day.
Yeah, local
last year. Yeah.
And I knew I still wanted to go to that, so I went straight from laying on the ground under the minivan to the fair. It just looked like that critter in the room.
Oh yeah, the dedication. I remember you covered in mud. It was like one of those horrible rainy days, like
it was
late
disgusting.
February. And you're covered in mud, you're still there at the volunteer day, like nothing happens.
Yeah, there's a bunch of people I wanted to see and kind of keep tabs on some things, and so I showed up there. Then I went home and had a shower.
Yeah.
Good.
Oh man, I love that.
There's like lots of random little outings like that.
Yeah, talk about like grit or like positive mindset, whatever you want to call it, but like, what do you tell yourself in that situation where you find yourself in the shit and you're like, this is not what I wanted to happen today?
I had time. I wasn't late to anything. I eventually was. It doesn't matter. I had cell service. I had, people will eventually drive that road. It's still close to town. I'm not in real trouble. So I was like, all right, keep moving. I don't know. That's not, to me, that's not like adversity. That's a minivan on the side of the road,
Okay, so like putting that problem in perspective of problems.
Yeah, oh shit, man, it's kind of embarrassing. Just run my minivan off the road. Like, I think I was drifting. But that's it. Like, that's where it ends. It's like, otherwise, car off road needs to become car on road.
Yeah.
And then we can go forward.
That's good.
Well, for me, that's not like a mental struggle. It's a very short scene.
Okay.
I think there's other times for me, like last year, 2 years ago, I told myself I was going to, 3 years ago, I told myself I was going to paddle 100 kilometers in a day, Revelstoke. Dogged it, had to turn around, ended up with like 80 kilometers or something, which was nice, but I just kind of was scared of the wind and having to fight it for 50 kilometers all the way home.
Yeah.
And then cut to 2 years ago, I thought I'll do a training day in Howe Sound, before going back up to Revelstoke the next week. And I got 50 kilometers in, and I remember just like calling my mom and saying, hey, can you bring a sandwich to Porto? Like, I think I'm just going to finish this. And so I did. That morning, I went out around Gambier and Anvil, back to Porto, met my parents, had a sandwich, and then went down to Lions Bay, back up to Watts Point, and back to Porto. And that finished my 100 and finished the goal that I had. And it was like, I didn't wake up that morning, oh, I'm going to fight through this and do this thing. It was like, I'm going to go for a training lap. This will be fun. And then it turned into like, this is going to work. Conditions are good. This is hilarious. Like, what terrible idea. And then just paddling into the dark. Yeah. It was like 16 or 18 hours or something in the boat. Like, horrible.
That's a nasty day. Hey?
But there just kind of comes a point where it's comedy. And you're like, this is just something I'm going to do. And now I've done it. And like, I think I knew that when I passed Porto heading for my last 25 to go to Watts Point and back.
Yeah.
That's when I knew, like, it's getting dark. I'm 75K into this. Yeah, pain, these things, I'm hungry and tired, whatever. I guess it's like so ridiculous that it's just, you just drive on that for the rest.
Yeah.
That's like a grit, maybe a thing, but
I
I don't see it the same
fuel,
way.
Yeah.
Like I think those things kind of just happen to me where like, I just like, this works.
Yeah.
This is going to work. It's not unsafe now. I've done the unsafe paddle around across Howe Sound and back. The rest is on the shore side.
Yeah.
If you just keep paddling, you're finished. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's like a bit more along the lines.
Yeah, I love that.
Like grit things, but also just like coasting on comedy.
Yeah.
For the rest.
And I think this is kind of ties right back to the theme you started at the start here when I asked you like what you love about mountain biking. It's like the fun.
Yeah.
So you're using that as fuel for your fire and perhaps getting you through some of those tougher or more challenging moments as well.
Yeah, for me, like it's funny because I don't see in sport, if there's that much grit and like determination to do what you're doing, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, are you enjoying this? Are you doing this because you said you would? And I don't know. Yeah, there's a difference there.
It's a really good thing I changed the name of this podcast, isn't it? Like, that was a horrible one.
No, it's just
I
like,
hear what you're saying. It's
well,
not
the
meant to be.
grit gets you a long way, obviously, and that's you have to go through those moments to get some goals you want, and you can enjoy it at the same time. But I think for me, the days that I'm having that would fall under that category are usually just like, it's a hilarious idea. Why not? I think that's like carries me further than like I need to try hard. I don't know.
Yeah, I love that now. Going back to like, it's meant to be fun. It's not meant to be like hard work all the time.
Yeah, I don't think. I don't know what it is. Yeah, like there should be hard work.
Yeah,
absolutely. So I don't want to discount that.
So like time and a place, maybe.
Yeah.
And I guess that's part of the puzzle is figuring out for you, like, when is the time and the place.
Yeah, I think like I've heard it before where like you get the word inspiration for people with disabilities all the time. Painful. And you'll hear it. Like I'll hike up to DOA on Blackcomb and people will pass me. Oh, it's so inspirational what you're doing. I'm like, I'm hiking for an hour and a half and then I'm skiing a line. Like, it's not like
you're doing the same thing, just in ways you both can do it.
Yeah, another like grit moment where it's like, is it? I don't know, to me, I guess, yeah, I just kind of float on ideas and do things. I guess like I don't know, rambling.
Yeah, and I guess grit can be like different for different people, right? Perhaps for someone that's never done much hiking, like that's like super inspiring, seeing
Sure.
anyone hike that, and maybe even more seeing someone with a disability hike it. But if you grew up hiking, mountain biking, kayaking, all of that stuff, maybe for you, that's just a regular day in the office, isn't it?
Well, it's still hard, but it's just sport.
Yeah.
I don't know, I think it's more what I mean. Like,
Okay.
like I can leave.
Yeah.
So for me, like grit and determination and things are like getting through something you have to do, or something that's happened to you and you need to get through it. So I'm like trying to figure out where that crossover is, because people do train and they work hard for the sport, things like that.
So perhaps in your racing days when it was like you need to get a certain time to make the team or whatever, so grit would come into that.
Yeah, there's things. There was a time where Kayla, the strength and conditioning coach for our team, she said, well, now that you've had your heart rate this high, your max heart rate is now up over 200. And if you don't get over 200, it's not your max.
Oh no, yeah.
That hurts. Yeah, we don't do that anymore.
Like, why did I try so hard? Now I have to get harder.
No, but no, I'm not. I never sandbagged any of that. But those are moments you're like, this isn't skiing.
Yeah.
It's sitting in a gym in Whistler, where someone over my shoulder is saying, you need to push harder. And she was a phenomenal coach, and still is. She's still with the team and still trains a bunch of other teams up there. But those are the moments where you're like, okay, I'm not doing the sport I want to be doing. I'm doing this for the sport I want to be doing. And that's what it takes to like wake up, drive up to Whistler, do the thing.
Yeah, that's a really interesting take on it. So we wind things down here. Is there anything we haven't talked about yet that you were hoping to talk about on this podcast today?
We've covered quite a bit.
Fantastic, man. Yeah. It's been a really good chat.
Yeah, I get the reputation of being a trail builder. I need to squash that pretty quick.
Come on.
I build a couple features
Let's figure out there tools in your hand.
And I've like worked on Mickey's. After Ted finished it, I stayed and kind of like used the backside of a rake on it for a year. But I don't build trails through and through, and I don't like, it's not, I don't know. I just like go and float around and enjoy like kind of, raking other people's work.
Yeah. And it's going to be more like the maintenance aspect.
Yeah, just like keeping tabs on the trails and hanging out there.
Yeah.
And
you showed me today, you did a great little addition to a little adaptive rig here in Squamish as well. Just like moved around a little bit of dirt.
No, yeah.
And
just little modifications to add to the network. No, I don't know. Yeah, I would love to learn a machine and get into it. And be a part of that world. But as far as like, I think that's like a lot of people come to me and like, you're a digger. And I'm like, when I look at like the time and the experience and the quality of the builds that are happening from a bunch of different builders in town, I'm not going to dare put myself close to that caliber. I think that kind of needs to be somewhere on record, because it's like, it's like, I hear it often enough and it makes me nervous, because I scrape off a slab and then I let someone else finish it when they find it. I put things in, but not often. Yeah. I think I did 2, maybe 3 days of digging last year.
Okay, nice. Good to set the record straight.
Yeah, I have some like Google Earth ideas, and I love hearing about other people's builds and chatting about some stuff. But it's not what is going on before us out there. I think people are building some incredible things. It's just,
Absolutely. Well, it's cool to hear about that ambition. And who knows, maybe you'll be behind the seat of a digger one day.
Yeah. I'd love to put a full trail in somewhere and like build some funny little connections I've seen in the network that could be in. And
I enjoyed watching James's video on his new trail, 𝗲𝗂𝗵𝗶 the other day. He was saying with a little machine, it feels more for him like hand building, because he does have to go around the rocks and he doesn't just bulldoze everything. He's kind of more intuitive.
Totally. Yeah. And a lot of his machine building, they're skinny ribbons. Like they're beautiful trails, and they do feel like hand built, because they're just weed and bob and move.
Totally.
Cool. I mean, there's a great variety in this town.
Yeah.
These builds are lucky.
Totally, man. Very lucky. On that note, man, thank you so much for being generous with your time today, getting me out for a ride. It's been a fantastic chat. For the listeners there, thank you all for tuning in, for listening. As always, if there's any questions that came out of this podcast or any questions you'd like to hear us answer on this podcast in the future, feel free just to reach out. You can find me at jake@themindmountain.com via email, or you can find me in our free Discord community, and the link is in the description to this video to join that one. Until next time, see you on the trails. Cheers.